Serving alcohol responsibly. Whether it's a cool, refreshing beer, a sophisticated whiskey on the rocks, or a celebratory glass of champagne, chances are you've interacted with alcohol in some form or another. It's often considered to be a social lubricant, and with a few sips, it can certainly lower inhibitions and increase the guest's confidence. However, too much alcohol can be problematic and harmful to both the person's physical well-being and the people around them. In this lesson, we will look at defining alcohol and serving alcohol responsibly. Let's start with a brief definition of what alcohol is. Alcohol is defined as a colorless, volatile, flammable liquid, which is the intoxicating constituent of wine, beer, spirits, and other drinks. It is typically produced through the process of fermentation. It is the alcohol content in these beverages that is responsible for causing inebriation. It affects different people in different ways, so it's important to analyze each guest that you are serving. Take note of your guest's gender and body composition. A small woman would generally have a lower tolerance for alcohol and become affected by it faster than a large man. Food helps to slow down the rate of alcohol absorption into the bloodstream, so take note of when your guests last ate. If you are unsure about their eating patterns, it is a good idea to suggest they order a snack with their beverage. So what does it mean to serve alcohol responsibly? Responsible service of alcohol is defined as serving and supplying alcohol in a responsible manner. Take a moment to think about what this means for you at your establishment. The responsible service of alcohol is a practice that prioritizes the health and safety of your guests. It is your responsibility to ensure the health and safety of your guests. This means that you need to know how to recognize when a guest has had too much to drink and what you can do to prevent potentially harmful situations from occurring. Over the next 4 lessons, we will take a closer look at the negative effects of excessive alcohol consumption. We will explore the importance of familiarizing yourself with the laws and regulations surrounding alcohol in your country. We will consider the facts about alcohol and take a look at a few myths regarding alcohol consumption. We will also investigate the social repercussions of excessive drinking. You will be taken through the various steps that will help you to identify potential problems before they get out of hand, the correct procedures to follow when dealing with inebriated guests, and most importantly, how to prevent these problems from happening in your establishment. On your journey through the course, you will gain a better understanding of your responsibility in ensuring the health and safety of every guest who chooses to visit your establishment. Don't worry if you find that thought a little daunting. Allow us to introduce Lawful Lee, who will be your learning companion through the course. He will help you reach your goal of serving alcohol to guests sensitively, professionally, and with respect. By the end of this course, you will have the necessary skills to help you serve alcohol to your guests responsibly and with confidence. Alcohol laws and regulations. While alcohol is mostly enjoyed all over the world, rules and regulations regarding its service and consumption vary from country to country. Therefore, it's important to have a thorough understanding of which rules apply to your establishment. In this lesson, we will look at the importance of knowing the law and your responsibility when serving alcohol. Let's begin with the importance of knowing the law. Regardless of where you're situated, serving alcohol to guests in a restaurant or bar is a tremendous responsibility. It's crucial to know the legal drinking ages in your country. For example, it's acceptable to drink at the age of 18 in Australia, but you need to be at least 21 in countries like America and the United Arab Emirates. Also keep in mind other factors such as dry zones and religious holidays when serving and consuming alcohol is strictly forbidden. Always take the time to learn the alcohol rules and regulations that apply to your establishment, especially if you are starting a new job in a foreign country. Knowing the law is also about keeping guests safe. Ignorance could have terrible consequences for the guest, as well as yourself. Next, let's look at your responsibility when serving alcohol. The role of a waiter or bartender involves much more than simply serving drinks. You also need to have the knowledge of a skilled salesman and the charm of an inviting host. Most importantly, you should assume the role of the law enforcer. You have a moral and legal duty to take care of your guests and make sure that they enjoy themselves safely. All staff members have an obligation to prevent and avoid incidents with drunk guests. Inform your manager if you see a potential problem so that it can be dealt with before things get out of hand. Be sure to notify all colleagues that the guest may not be served any more alcohol. Finally, ensure that the guest's bill is settled before they leave and indicate that if the guest is still not cooperating, security may be called for further assistance. Be polite and friendly at all times to preserve the guest's dignity where possible. Situations like these can be quite tricky to handle, so remember to ask for advice if you are ever unsure of how to handle an inebriated guest. When in doubt, notify your manager. You should now have a better understanding of alcohol laws and regulations. To summarize, we looked at the importance of knowing the law and your responsibility when serving alcohol. Spend some time learning exactly which rules apply to your country and establishment. This will give you a better idea of how to serve alcohol responsibly. Facts and myths about alcohol. As you have seen, serving alcohol to guests comes with enormous responsibility. In this lesson, we will explore a few misconceptions surrounding the consumption of alcohol, with particular emphasis on common myths about alcohol and the effects of excessive alcohol consumption. Let's start by looking at some common myths about alcohol. Many people believe that alcohol is a great way to relax, reduce stress, and even increase longevity. This is only the case for a specified and controlled intake of alcohol, such as a glass of red wine after a hard day at work. Drinking too much will only do more harm than good. Some say that coffee, cold showers, and exercise will help to sober someone up, and lining your stomach with a greasy or milky solution will keep a person from getting drunk or sick. However, these are merely myths. Consider the following scenario. Lawful Lee is back on duty and is tending to a thirsty guest who's had a little too much already. When Lawful Lee informs him that he cannot serve him any more alcohol, the guest decides to order a coffee to sober himself up so that he can drink again. Lawful Lee explains to his guest that the coffee might make him feel better, but it won't speed up the sobering process. Quite impressed with this interesting fact, the guest refrains from ordering the next drink. Good work, Lawful Lee. Use this information to make your guests aware of alcohol myths. And remember that the only effective method for sobering up is waiting long enough for the effects of alcohol to wear off. Now let's look at the effects of excessive alcohol consumption. Alcohol can have both short-term and long-term effects on your personal health. Alcohol is composed of very small molecules, and these are absorbed into the blood. Consuming an excessive amount of alcohol in one sitting, or more commonly known as binge drinking, can lead to blurred vision, nausea and vomiting, lack of consciousness, and even alcohol poisoning. This can also have quite severe long-term consequences. Liver cirrhosis, alcoholic hepatitis, diabetes, and impaired brain development are examples of the physical damage alcohol can have on the body. Psychological effects include depression, anxiety, cravings, and sleeping disorders. To recap, we looked at common myths about alcohol and the effects of excessive alcohol consumption. Although excessive alcohol abuse is dangerous, drinking alcohol can also have positive associations when enjoyed responsibly. Spend some time getting to know more about the short-term and long-term effects of alcohol abuse so you can ensure that your guests drink safely and responsibly in your establishment. Dealing with guests who've had too much. The topic of alcohol can sometimes be quite a sensitive one, especially with regards to the amount of alcohol a person consumes. This is why it is so important for you to know how to identify guests who have had too much to drink, as well as the correct procedures to follow when dealing with inebriated guests. In this lesson, we will look at identifying potential problems and dealing with potential problems. Let's take a look at the following scenario to help in identifying potential problems. A couple is looking forward to a romantic anniversary dinner, and a group of friends are out for a meal together to celebrate one of their birthdays. Enter Bob, a fun-loving guy, out to have a good time. Before long, Bob has ordered 5 cocktails. His night is only going one way. After making light work of the pina colada and enthusiastically ordering another round of drinks, Bob decides to introduce himself to the other guests. Can you spot any signs that Bob has had a few drinks too many? Well, firstly, his body language is an excellent indicator. Notice how he's slouching and struggling to stand upright. Real classy, Bob. He is also talking loudly, stumbling about, slurring his words, and he seems to have difficulty judging distance. Bob is clearly in no fit state to continue drinking. Another preventative measure to consider is to avoid allowing Bob to ever get to this point in the first place. Even if your guest does not seem as though they are affected by the amount of alcohol they have consumed, you still need to be aware of how much your guests are drinking and prevent them getting to that point where they need to be escorted out. Now, let's take a closer look at dealing with potential problems. It's important that guests who are clearly intoxicated and being disruptive towards other guests are not served. The other guests have reached their limit with Bob and are just about to storm out of the restaurant. Luckily, Lawful Lee, a conscientious and informed waiter, steps in. Let's see how he diffuses the situation using the REACT system. First, request that the guest calms down, particularly if they are being rowdy. Next, explain why their behavior is inappropriate while listing any rules that they may have broken. Then, appeal to the guest to stop what they are doing. Please is always a great word to use here. The next thing to do is confirm or repeat any potential consequences. Finally, take action. If necessary, it is acceptable to call the authorities, but force should be avoided at all times. If your guest is not behaving in an aggressive manner, escort them from the property and ensure that they get home safely by calling a taxi. Guests should never be allowed to drive a vehicle after that much alcohol. Once the guest has left, apologize to any other guests who may have been affected by the incident. To summarize, in this lesson, we looked at identifying potential problems and dealing with potential problems. When dealing with guests that have had too much to drink, it is important to always treat them with respect. Remember that a successful refusal of alcohol service is one that is not noticed by other guests. You are now familiar with how to identify guests who have excessively consumed alcohol. By practicing the skills you have learned during this course, you will be able to actively prevent situations like Bob's from occurring and maintain the health and safety of every guest in your establishment. social repercussions of excessive drinking. Up to this point, we have discussed how to deal with problematic guests and the physical harm that excessive drinking can cause your body. But how does overindulging in alcohol affect the people around you as well as your establishment? To conclude this course, we'll examine the social implications of excessive alcohol consumption and the ramifications of irresponsible alcohol service for your establishment. Let's start by taking a look at the social implications of excessive alcohol consumption. In Lesson 1.4, dealing with guests who've had too much, we looked at how to identify guests who have had too much to drink and the procedures to follow in these situations. Let's take a closer look at how you can apply what you've learned by looking at the following scenario. Chris has had a few too many drinks and is getting a little too friendly with the other guests. He clumsily moves from table to table, leaving a wake of destruction in his path. Guests are quickly losing patience, and a few decide that they've had enough. Although Chris thinks he's the life of the party, chances are he's going to wake up with a severe headache and probably fewer friends. Unfortunately, continually behaving like this could have further implications, such as social alienation, anxiety, and depression. Now, let's discuss the ramifications of irresponsible alcohol service for your establishment. Chris's rampage not only has negative effects on his personal well-being, but it also incurs extra costs to the establishment. His inappropriate behavior could lead to unfavorable reviews. This can cause a chain reaction that may result in guests avoiding the establishment altogether. It could also lead to more frequent visits from the police, which could jeopardize the establishment's alcohol license. Chris's reckless behavior also has moral implications, as he is clearly a danger to himself. Preventing him from hurting himself should be a priority. Excessive alcohol consumption is a problem that can have devastating effects, not only for the consumer, but also for their friends and family. However, it is an issue that can be completely avoided through awareness and actively addressing potential problems before they get out of hand. Use what you have learned over the duration of this course to promote a safe and friendly environment for both colleagues and guests. This will ensure that your establishment continues to be a delightful venue to enjoy a cold beverage, regardless of the occasion. Cheers to responsible alcohol service.